Hey everybody, good afternoon. This is Eric Jans, and we have some special guests with us today for long-term care awareness week. I want to make sure that you check out our new content on the website. The URL is right there. It's on the North American Insurance Services site /agent library /long-term care. There's a magic secret word at the bottom. We've had 3 so far. If you collect all 5 of them and send them to me, we're going to be sending you or putting you into the pool for a prize. And then also just a reminder that every day has its own registration link, and that is basically it. Get started today. I've got Rachel Smith is back with us from Concourse. Misty and Phil are also here from Concourse. They're not on camera at the moment, but I'm also happy to introduce Sharon Luker, one of our agents at North American, and Renee Shannon, one of the VPs at North American. And today we're going to talk about cross-selling long-term care with your Medicare and your under 65 clients. And I know that Sharon has another engagement today, so I'm going to let her start. She's been in the business of long-term care for over 20 years, so she's somebody that you can talk to about all your issues and questions and so on and so forth. Sharon?
Okay. Since we're under a little bit of a time constraint, I'm just going to jump into this, and I've got little notes that I'm going to be referring to. But the first thing, Eric, when Eric asked me to talk, it was basically on presenting long-term care initially to my Medicare people. And that has challenges in itself because they're 65 plus. So the first recommendation, I'm just going to go through and kind of give some recommendations on what to do. The first thing that we talk about, and we talk about this continually, is to stack. I would include a long-term care option in your stack. Now, as if you've been on these calls this week, you see that there are multiple options that you can include. So I first do a little intel before you even decide what you even want to talk about. And the easiest way to do this, if you are dealing with someone with Medicare, you're already asking their doctors, you're already asking their medications. You just need to add a few more questions that you'll ask them, and then you will get a pretty good sense if they qualify for certain long-term care options. And you can take that. I'm sure Concourse has a form that you could kind of fill out that you can submit, and then they'll come back with their suggestions. But you need to get that form and find out what they're looking for and incorporate it into your initial talk. And at that point, as we all know, the clients will tell you everything. They tell you about what's going on. Just ask those questions so you don't have to go back and ask them. And that will really set the precedent of what you're going to be recommending to them. The second thing I'm going to say is, if you're talking to someone going on Medicare, many people feel that Medicare will cover long-term care expenses. Now, I would be very careful to say that it doesn't cover any, because it does. There is a little bit of crossover in the beginning, especially if they're in rehab. And I don't know about you guys, but I have had people tell me that they get home health care through Medicare, paid for. One lady told me she's been doing it for 2 years. I don't know quite how that happens, but that's what I've been told. And in order to get some of that long-term care with Medicare, you have to have a prior hospital visit. There's certain requirements that you have to meet in order to get that. I would become educated in that so that they know, because you're creating the need and showing them where there could be a hole in their plan. Now, initially, I know Renee does this a little bit differently. If they do not qualify for long-term care, I would not even go down that path. I would not even discuss it. The other thing I would say is, as you go on Medicare, it is a separate plan. And that's one thing I have to tell people. What we do for your wife, we might not do for you. We might have different drug plans. Same thing with long-term care. Long-term care needs to be individualized. We may buy a certain policy for the husband. We may do something else for the wife if they don't qualify. But if you set that up front, then they don't get so attached at the hip that they have to have, the same thing. Let's see, what else do I want to say? When you're dealing with people 65 and older, underwriting is the key. You're now going to hit medical issues, underwriting, underwriting, underwriting. And you want to do as much as this up front. So you really want to be working with Concourse to ask the questions. Or me personally, I call the underwriters and I talk to them. An example is Mutual of Omaha and their standalone. If you're in any sort of physical therapy, they will not write you. I had a client who was doing physical therapy on her hand, and they said, don't submit, wait till it's over. So those are things that you'll get to know in time, and Concourse should be able to help you. What else do I want to say? Do know your options. We've gone over some of the options, the standalone. I'm a standalone girl, I know that pretty well, but it has its limitations. You do have rate increases. David, I thought yesterday, I think that was his name. Was it David? I thought he did a really good job explaining things, talking about the life with a long-term care writer, talking about the hybrid. Yeah, I thought so too, Renee. Renee is going to talk to you about a different option with Aetna. There's True Freedom. Really get to know what you have in your hip pocket, because the key in this world at age 65 is pivot, and I'm not talking pivot insurance. I'm talking, if they tell you something, you need to pivot over here. If the comment goes, well, I just got diagnosed with Parkinson's. Oh, okay. Well, that cuts out a lot of things, okay? They don't know it, but you know it. So you want to be prepared. Now, the other thing I will say on that is part of your asking the questions is find out if they have any annuities, find out if they have any life insurance. Many people at that age are now saying, well, I bought life insurance to cover for college expenses. Now I'm older. If there's cash value, you can 1035 that over into a policy that leverage is the word. Leverage is the key. You can leverage those dollars into kind of doing both. Now, one thing that I don't think I necessarily agreed with David on this, if someone says, I need life insurance, and you go, well, let's do both. They need to know that if they use that policy for long-term care, the life insurance gets diminished. So it goes down. So if they really needed X amount of life insurance, then you've got to be careful that they don't think that they still have it if they don't use it. Let's see. Oh, the other thing is annuities. If they have any annuities, because there's more and more long-term care is just really, the insurance side is really changing right now. And the other day I was looking at annuity for a client. I think it was Global. I forgot who it was. Anyway, it was paying 5% interest, 5%, and you could have it extended for long-term care. So 1035, some of those old annuities over, it would be perfect. And you do have different underwriting with those. So that's where you'll get to know your underwriting. The next thing I'm going to say is don't assume, I know everyone's going to kill me, but don't assume that a standalone long-term care policy is too expensive. I will hear agents say, well, you don't want to look at it because it's too expensive. Well, expensive is relative. And it's kind of like buying a car. I can go buy a Mercedes and I can buy, I don't want to knock Ford, but I can buy a lower level car. And, I would not assume it because some of these policies, I was just looking at some, like if I had age 65 for $5,000 a month, $3,000 benefit pool. Now, there's a single male, not married. It was about $178, depending if he's preferred rating or not, a month. That is not too bad. So I would definitely run the numbers if you think they qualify for a standalone policy. Now, a single female, older female, that is definitely more pricey. But there are things that we can do. My next point is policy design. And Eric, I think that should be another session, is policy design. Because you can, if you've got a couple coming in, you could do a shared care feature. I don't want to get into the weeds, but you can design a plan to help with their budget. I think you get, for me personally, and I think David said this yesterday, I think you get the most bang of the buck for the standalone, but you got to jump through hoops. And which, I just rode a 71, 72-year-old the other day. And by the way, on the standalones, I know Mutual of Omaha, they changed it during COVID, but I just checked, they're up to age 79. So if you're dealing with someone in the 80s, forget the standalones. Even forget, I think, the hybrids. I'd have to check the upper age on that. I think it might be 80, 81. So then you've got to pivot. You've got to go to a different, proposal there. But just know they could go as high. But the older you get, the more they're going to look at you. So you got to get through underwriting. The other thing I want to say is a lot of people age 65 and older are still working. If they are still working, you want to know, do you own a company? Do you not? How many employees? You want to ask those questions about working. Do you have a plan at work? Sometimes maybe they could hop on a plan at work. Now, you might not make any money on it, but that's still doing the right thing for the client. And that can also pivot into maybe talking about setting up a worksite, or what we call a group plan for a company. So if you hit that, and if they seem amenable, I hit that the other day where this 62-year-old called, she owns her own company, 17 employees. I said, what about, let's set it up as a group. And then she was telling me all her employees are in their 20s and 30s. Well, forget that. That's not going to fly. They're not going to buy, that's not going to fly. So don't forget that aspect. The other thing I want to say is tax benefits. So sometimes you'll run into these retirees that maybe own their own company. I talked to an attorney the other day who's retired, but he still does stuff on the side. And he had set up this little company on the side as a C corporation. Well, those are the magic words. As a C corp, it's fully deductible. So he can get some tax benefits. So don't ignore tax benefits if they have a company. Plus, as an individual, if they have huge, it as an individual is classified as a medical expense. So it gets thrown into the, 7.5%, or is it 10% now of gross income before they can deduct it on their tax return. But just know that they're out there, because you never know. I tell people, once they get a policy, always tell your accountant you have a long-term care policy and let them determine if that's tax deductible or not. The last thing that I really want to say is long-term care. Not too long ago, we were looked at, people that did long-term care was looked at stepchildren, but we are now in vogue now. We are now on the front cover as Cosmopolitan because the states, Washington, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but the states now know that they are going to be on the hook via Medicaid for a lot of money. And in the state of Washington, gosh, that was probably about a year and a half ago, they are now mandated that there's going to be a payroll tax for everyone who does not have a long-term care policy. Unbelievable. When I first heard that, I couldn't believe it. So California's next, Illinois is looking at it. It is something the states are looking at. It is in the press. People are talking about it. Companies all over the place are wanting to put a plan in place. Plus, plans are changing all the time. More people are jumping in. So that's basically all I have to say on that. Any questions?
That was really great. That was really great. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody has any, put them in there and we'll read those off. But that was really good info. And like you said, underwriting is a big deal, and it's different for all these products. And I don't know if I can show the other. Oh, I showed the screen yesterday, but we have 5 main categories of products, and so it may fit something that it may not fit what you're looking at initially, but it might fit something else. So you don't want to just say, well, long-term care, the traditional plan with Mutual of Omaha is not going to work, so we're not going to do anything. It may work well for another product. So we want to know what those products, what that underwriting looks like for all those different products.
Sometimes there's a little niche, like for instance, if you're running into a weight chart, you may fall off the weight chart at a standalone, but you may fall in the weight chart over in one of the hybrid plans. So it's so important that you deal with someone that knows it. If you want to specialize in it, these are things that you need to know. Otherwise, you can't do it on your own coming out of the gate. You just can't. You got to work with someone.
That's great. Well, thank you, Sharon. I really wanted to have Sharon here for this expertise, and I also wanted to have Renee here because Renee's someone that you need to talk to if you're talking about Medicare at all. She runs the your local Medicare specialist stuff for North American and knows a lot about that topic. But I wanted her to talk about specifically Aetna and the home health care stuff, because they may not be ready for the traditional, they may not be ready for the hybrid stuff, but these home health care products that we have, even the final expense stuff, fits in really well with what we're doing on this topic. So take it away, Renee.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much for talking about that. I know people, even I didn't know that you specialized in it, so good to know. I know that you're in financials and things like that, so great people that we can go and ask questions. I don't really know that much about long-term care. Unfortunately, I am my mom's primary caretaker at the moment. She got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So if you think that you're not going to need it or somebody's not going to need it, I will disagree with you. And my mom does have long-term care. She had the foresight to do it a long time ago. So I have kind of the best of both worlds, but it's still something on the first day that they were talking about is resources. So, you know, one of the great things that I think he said, and I wrote it down, is you don't have a money problem, you have a resource problem. And I've been very fortunate to have a great team of oncologists for my mom, and they have helped with all of that, you know, with the drugs and the things like that. So don't think that your clients don't need this, because they do. We're not talking about it. And I am so excited about Eric taking the reins and bringing this in, and Sharon, you having the experience that you have. I don't have that experience. What I have is in Medicare. And so with Medicare, I think that when we talk to people, just like Sharon said, there are questions to ask. And Sharon and I talked about this the other day. We really want to have somebody present something. And I think Sharon would be a great person to help present a, you know, a mock deal of a client, financial person talking about, you know, long-term care. But what I do when I am talking about Medicare is I go through, and of course I pick the Medicare supplement plan, your Part D, and then I look at Aetna. And one of the reasons I do is it's easy for the agent and it's easy for the client, and it's brand recognition. So you don't have to say, well, this company over here, we could do this. So you want to keep things as easy as possible. 1 for the agent, 2 for the client, and, you know, 3 for you to be able to enroll them. Luckily with Aetna, if you guys are not on Aetna, not doing stacking, you're missing a great opportunity to help your clients and a great opportunity for you to make more money and have more policies with your clients. So I always pick the Medicare Advantage, the Medicare Supplement, or their Part D, and then I'll go in, hey, you know, do you need dental health, dental, hearing, and vision? They'll say, oh yeah, I need that, or, you know, and I usually will just build a policy. I don't ever ask their budget because I don't want to know what their budget is, because a lot of times people come to us and they have an idea of what they think, but their thinking is not always correct. I had a woman today say, I don't want an HMO. And I had to kind of tell her what an HMO used to look like versus what an HMO looks like today. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. So it was really different. It was under 65, believe it or not. And so one of the ways I kind of talk about it as I stack, and Aetna has 2 really good products that if it doesn't fit in a long-term care standalone, like Sharon said, or a life insurance annuity, you know, then we have other options. And the other options are Aetna. They've got a home health care. And I always present it as this gives you breathing room in case something happens. So I will say, Eric, if something happens to your mom tomorrow, what are you going to do? They don't know. Well, who's going to take care of them? Well, I guess I will. How are you going to pay for that? I don't know. You know, so it gets them thinking, because all of us have stuck our head in the sand. I don't have a long-term care policy. Guess what? I got life insurance and I've got 401k that I can 1035. You know, and a lot of people don't realize that. I'm about to be 61 years old. I need to look at that. So, you know, life will kind of help direct you into different things. But if you look at the Aetna home health care, that is, you can design it however you need to with a zero wait. So if something happens, someone can be there tomorrow to help. So I always kind of make a joke of, you know, if your mom falls and you go up there, you move everything, you sell the house, and then you move in with her, but she's okay, and 3 months later, you're like, oh my gosh, my mom lives with me now. It kind of gives you breathing room of not having to make financial decisions in an emotional crisis. So that's always how I present it. And people are like, oh, and it's very affordable, y'all. I mean, very affordable. I usually do it for zero wait, 180 days, which can reset, by the way, if you don't use it for 6 months. And then you get so many hours. Well, those hours, that's a lot of hours. I usually do about 900 to 1100 a week. No one's going to really use that much. So look at those policies. The other one, and that's for being at home. So you really want to have them stay at home as long as possible, because they want to be at home. They will get better care at home. And so that's kind of how I use that is, we want you to stay at home, but we want someone to help you at home. The other one is the recovery care. So one of them is home recovery care. One of them is just recovery care. Recovery care is in an institution. Let's say that something happens, they need to go into a nursing home. You can design that up to a year. A lot of people don't stay in a nursing home more than 2 or 3 years. Sometimes they do, but at least that gives them a year. And if I can remember correctly, zero wait time a year, I'm going to say it's around 75, 85, maybe $100 a month. That's pretty doggone cheap. And you can do it for $150 a day, $200 a day, $250 a day, whatever you want to design it as. So I think those are always important. I always present those with, and I do not skip a beat. And the reason I don't is, one, I want to do the same presentation with every single person. Two, I want to plant a seed in case they don't do it at that time. Then I can go back and say, hey, Eric, remember when we signed you up for Medicare? We went through some of the things and you opted not to do the home health care. I really think that's an important piece of your retirement, because it can break the bank if you're not prepared. Let's take a look at that. And then, you know, because they've got Medicare on their mind, they got to get the Medicare, they got to get the Medicare. So it actually gives you a way to go back and talk to them about that. And you're covering your own, you know what, because you're presenting the cancer plan, the home recovery care. And so if something happens, which I don't think any of us have this, but their kids can't come back to you and say, hey, you never talked to my parents about this. Or my parents thought long-term care was covered by Medicare. It's not, you know, and we are the people that need to tell them that, because they don't know. So that's kind of my take on that. And then again, you know, there's true freedom. So I think what Eric's going to do, and I hope he does, is we're going to have all the different ways and kind of maybe where they fit, because they all fit differently. And they're all, and I don't think we have to become an expert tomorrow, but I do think we need to become pretty good at this, because that's going to be our next big boom, in my opinion.
Well, if you think about that's really good. If you think about how we're all aging and our clients are aging, everybody in America is aging. This is going to be a bigger and bigger issue for all of us as time goes on.
Yep.
Renee, let me make a comment. On long-term care insurance claims, about 70% of claims are home health care.
Yep.
Home health care. So
Yep.
if you're trying to play the odds, at least having what the Aetna has is something. And the other thing that I just saw this today, and I guess I realized it, but I didn't, in order for Medicare to pay initially for some of that rehab, that I'll call it short-term care, you have to have a prior hospital stay. And you know what? That doesn't include observation days. So that if you are in the hospital in a room and you think you've been admitted when you have not, and you are still in observation days, and then they go, okay, we got to send you over to rehab, that's not going to qualify. Versus having some of that you just talked about. Now, in a standalone long-term care policy, there's a 90-day certification.
That's where that short term can fit in too.
Right. That's a good point. That's a very good point, because there's that 90 days that you have to have a medical practitioner sign off, because long-term care insurance, no matter what it is designed for long-term care, long-term.
Yep.
So filling that gap, that's a good point.
Yep. And the other thing, think about this too. I mean, you don't really know until you go through something. My mom has been in the hospital once, and that's when she got diagnosed in September.
Wow.
She has never had, she would have never triggered that again if she didn't have something in place. So when people go, oh no, Medicare will take care of some of it. Well, not unless you're in the hospital for 3 days, it won't.
Right.
Yeah, I have people that have Medicare supplements and they're like, oh no, I don't need that. And I'm like, what if you don't go in the hospital? And they're like, well, that didn't matter. And I'm like, oh yeah, it does.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's 3 days. I mean, hospitals don't keep you in. It's 3 days, not including the day you go in, the day you go out. You don't stay in the hospital 3 days. They got that foot on your butt to get you out as soon as possible. I mean, they're kicking you out. But Renee, I want to know, this is personal, how did your mom's long-term care policy work with her current situation?
I haven't had to kick it in yet because she does not have 2 of her daily living activities. She can still do just about everything. So, I mean, it ebb and flows. 3 weeks ago, I thought we were losing her. Now we're on a chemo pill and she's on an upswing. So, I mean, I couldn't really say, here you go. But what I can tell you is my mom's had it for over 20 years. She used to pay about $250 for it. In the last 3 years, it's gone up 76%. So,
Renee, I would file a claim anyway and get the process going. Now I'm doing personal.
No, I think people need to know real life experiences.
If she's going on claim, most likely, that's the one thing people go, well, you have to pay for these policies forever. Well, you do not. If you go on claim, her premium, depending on the policy, stops.
Yeah.
So I hear the insurance companies say, even if you're going into the hospital, we want to know. I would start the process and at least go through it, if nothing else, to get that premium stopped.
Good. Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. These are the kind of things I think are really important. And Eric, like I said, I can't thank you enough for taking this. It's a beast of a topic, I know, but if we all kind of join together, then we can help our agents kind of figure out where they need to go, because I really do think this is going to be a huge, huge deal, and we're not prepared and our clients are not prepared.
Right. And I don't want to shift too abruptly to the money part of it, but I mean, we're helping people and that's the point. But one of the things that's really intriguing for me and hopefully for you guys as well, I took Renee's stack. So Renee has a great Aetna stack where she shows, and I'll have this on the website tomorrow as part of the content for tomorrow, but she has a great stack where she shows a Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement. I don't think I did that one, but I did a Medicare Advantage stack where she shows the different products that she talks about, from dental to the home health care to the cancer, the heart disease, all the products, and it goes from a Medicare Advantage sale where you're making $600 through, hey, let's stack this Aetna on top of that, and suddenly you've turned the $600 sale into a $2,000 sale. And then I said, well, what if we took that stack and changed it a little bit and added the long-term care to it, and it turned into a $7,000 sale? So we're talking about maybe potentially increasing your commissions 10 times, what you were making, even more than that.
I think that's important. Exactly. And that's what I was trying to, one of the great things about what we do here is we're all agents that like helping other agents and giving our tips and things like that. But that was what I was trying to get with the Medicare is don't do what most agents do and just do a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage sale. Thank you so much. See you, bye. Go in and make sure you're talking about this. And like Sharon said, what I say is, this is what my job is, to make sure that we talk about the things that may have a financial impact on you in your later years or retirement. They understand that. Then all of a sudden you're a consultant. You're not a salesperson because you're talking about things that are going to come up. And if you don't talk about it, they may not ever get somebody that knows about it.
One of the big revelations for me was I'm a kind of a slow learner, I think, because I would go in and do the one product and get out, and I would say, well, I'll come back later and ask them about it next time. And then you come back to the client and you ask them about their disability insurance. Oh, I got that from my financial planner. You ask them about their long-term care. Oh, I got that from this person, and they've gotten their life insurance. They've got all their products from all these different agents, and I'm thinking, I'm licensed to sell that. Why am I not talking to it? It's a lot more efficient if you've got them there to talk about everything you can, even if you don't do it on that appointment. At least let them know that this is something that you can offer them or help them with.
And that's the reason I did that sheet, is as much for me as it was for them. So they can look at it and go, oh, I need to call Renee and talk about that life insurance, or I need to call and talk about that home health care. She reminded me of that. And it's just really, one, being a consultant, and then two, planting the seed if you don't do it at that point. And you don't want to sell something that they don't need or want, but you at least want to be able to tell them, here are some of the things, as I have talked to people and they've gotten older, that are important. And that's what I say. These things are important as you retire. And Sharon knows that.
But I think it's a really good point, because how long have I known Renee and she has no clue that I have an expertise in long-term care?
Yep.
Shame on me. And I am really bad at that. And I know a lot about it, and I can help people. I can feel myself going into mode with you, Renee, like, oh, okay, let me talk to you about this.
But I am going to call you now, because I do need to, I put it off. I put it off because I haven't had time, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But, I also don't know all the ins and outs, and I'm an insurance agent, for goodness sakes.
Right.
So shame on me too for not knowing more. So this is all about all of us learning more about what we can do to help each other, what we can do to help our clients. Gosh, my mom, most everybody knows my mom, she's been on trips with me, so,
Eric, I have to hop because I have to get to another appointment here. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to call, or I can help, or Concourse is there to help you too, So they're a good resource.
Thank you so much. And gosh, you were so helpful in this.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I will contact you.
That was awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Sharon.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Renee, I have a question for you on the chat here. Judy's asking if you can send your the client intake sheet out.
Who is that?
Judy. But
Yep.
if you send it, so we can send it to everybody who wants it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, I'm really excited about this topic, obviously. And it's a funny story. Before I came to North American, I was actually hooked up with a long-term care company. That was during my weird year, and I can tell you guys that story some other time. But my weird year, where my business was going really awesome, and then all of a sudden it exploded and was going nowhere because I had too many eggs in one basket. And so when I was working with this company that was selling long-term care, and I did that for about 2 or 3 months, where I sat at my computer all day with a dialer, calling people in, retired people in Texas that I didn't know, and I didn't know anything about the product, and the phone would just call, and I would talk to these mostly voicemails, and then as soon as that hung up, it would ring again and go to the next person, and it was like one of the worst insurance experiences of my life. But so it's funny that I'm back at it, kind of.
Well, I think it's really good because, I mean, things have changed. Gosh, think
Yeah.
about how long ago that was. And I mean, to me, the housing market, student debt, this is going to be a biggie.
Mhm.
This one right here is going to be a biggie. And you're already seeing it in other states. How are they going to do it? Because, I mean, we're all going to get older. I mean, who's going to pay for this?
Right.
You know?
And there's some other products that we're not even talking about yet, like what I ended up doing for myself, and I may change that at some point as I know more about long-term care, but what I ended up doing initially was just a big whole life policy that I can use later for college or for this, and I, you know, the 1035 stuff might come into play at some point as well, so I don't really
Oh,
know.
I have a huge whole life policy. I firmly believe in my money doing two different things.
Mm-hmm.
I stuff a ton of money away for that, but I don't have a long-term care rider on it. I have living benefit riders on
Yeah.
it. And so that's important to me as well. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, looking at long-term care, for me, just the way I think about money, and you got to remember too, everybody thinks about money differently. That's the reason some people have a Medicare Advantage plan, some people have a Medicare supplement plan. And I know people are like, I hate it, Medicare Advantage. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes people can't afford it, or sometimes they really don't want to. They know they're, you know, max out of pocket, or what I call their safety net. So when you look at that, you go, okay, well, I've got money. I can do a 1035 exchange, and I can have my money doing two different things, an annuity, and it can sometimes double or triple my long-term care.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I want, because I like my money doing two different things. It's the reason I have a whole life policy. I either get cash, or God forbid, I get a death benefit, or God forbid, I get living benefit. Three different things.
Well, we'll have to add that to our conversation one of these days as well, because I know Concourse can help with that as well. But I'm excited about what we're doing, and I'm planning on putting a Facebook group together, just like the one you have with the Medicare. That's an incredible resource. Hopefully mine will be as good as yours. But I love it. I love that we can collaborate with the different topics. And we didn't talk a lot about the under 65 stuff in regards to this, but same thing, guys. If you are talking to somebody in their sweet spots like 45 to 60 on prices for long-term care. So if you got some under 65 people that are thinking about it, maybe their parents are starting to go into that, or
Well, I'm 61, and why am I thinking about it? My mom.
Right.
I mean, I don't have anybody to take care of me. I don't have kids. You know, you've got kids.
We watched my wife and I watched 4 of our grandparents go through the long-term care stuff. I mean, it was from one set of grandparents that lived in like the lap of luxury with a pool, and we were jealous. We wanted to move in with them, to her grandmother who had dementia, was in one of the worst facilities in town for like 7 years because she didn't have any money put away. And then now our parents are in their late 70s, and I'm going, well, what do you guys have? Because I really need to know what your policy looks like, because that was something I wasn't even aware of that they had done years ago, and they have a pretty good policy. But I mean, it's important to me too.
1 in 9 people are diagnosed with early on stage Alzheimer's or dementia. 1 in 9. Remember when we didn't have a diabetes epidemic? Well, now all of a sudden we're having this Alzheimer and dementia, and you know, that's a scary number.
Well, like one of the things you said about your mom, like my wife's grandma, she had dementia, but she was healthy. She took care of herself her whole life, so she never she never had to go to the hospital. She was in assisted living and in the nursing home, and she wasn't sick. She didn't have any health issues other than the dementia, so she just kept on living. And she was someone that told us when she was healthy, before all that, she was someone that told us she would never want to go to a place like that. And she ended up there for a really long time. So it was a sad situation, but
And it is sad. I mean,
Yeah.
because there are some things that you really can help. I built a house for my mom. She lives across my driveway. I love it. And I told her, I said, you'll never be in an assisted living. If she got dementia, I don't know that I could say that.
Mhm.
You know, so we have to look at all different aspects of aging and aging in place. Yeah, we want to age in place, but not everybody gets to do that.
Right.
So,
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I'll wrap this up. Just a reminder to everybody to jump back on tomorrow. I'm hoping to talk a little bit more about commissions, but I know we're also going to have some of the carriers here tomorrow. I think we have 3 different carrier reps on tomorrow, as well as our concourse people. So we'll see where that conversation goes. But we're going to talk more about just the opportunity and how you can get involved in offering this stuff to your clients. I'm really excited about it.
and get that group together. And if you need a person to help you kind of get it running, I'll be happy to do that. I think this is a really, really big, important subject. And I think all of us need to understand it a lot more than we do.
Absolutely. I'm sending my contact info out to Tracy, but if I don't make it before this is over with, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, guys. It was great seeing you. Thank you. If you have any questions about Aetna, get a hold of me, get a hold of Eric. He has great resources at Concourse. So let us know how we can help you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.